Today I'm having to multitask because I have too many things to do today, and I know I have not recorded for this week's podcast to come out tomorrow. So I'm going to do that while I'm making some breakfast here, if you don't mind. I do need to get some coffee on because I need some coffee this morning. I'm also boiling some water in my hot pot because my drain is running slow. And last time I had someone out looking at my drain, they told me that it wasn't built correctly, and my home warranty wouldn't really pay to fix it because it wasn't done right. So I need to be getting a plumber out to redo the drain pipes because apparently they're not done correctly. So that's what's going on here. For this week's podcast, I want to focus on a scripture that we don't normally look at, perhaps in the way it should be. And that's, I'm thinking of the scripture where we see Jesus with his disciples, and he comes upon a fig tree, and he goes up to the fig tree and finds out it doesn't have any figs on it. So he curses it. And then later when the disciples come back by, they see that the fig tree has died. The fig tree has died. And so what we see is let me pour this hot water down this drain here to kind of clear it out. Didn't go down as fast as it should have. But let's go ahead and plug in the coffee pot here. We need some coffee going. I've been drinking hot tea because of my throat. I'm going to make some waffles this morning. So anyway, when we're looking at the scripture about Jesus coming upon the fig tree, and there's no figs on it, so he curses it, and then it dies. And we look at that and think, well, that's kind of unusual behavior for Jesus as we think of Jesus. But what's really going on there? What's really going on there? And what we really see in that passage is not because the tree has no fruit. Jesus goes up expecting to see some figs on this fig tree, and there were none. But that's not why Jesus was mad at it. Jesus was mad at it because it did not have figs while it had leaves. So it had the very appearance of being a tree that was producing fruit, but it wasn't. It was putting on a show. It had its leaves, but it did not have fruit. And I was watching The Chosen Season 5, Episode 5 last night at church with my video discussion group. And one of the things that we were talking about from the video, the character playing Jesus look at the disciples and says, "You don't get it. You don't understand. Why did I curse this tree? It wasn't because it didn't have fruit." And then in the episode, the character playing Jesus said, "Remember when I cleared out the temple? from the money changers, the people selling and ripping people off. He said, the reason I cleared the temple of the money changers is the same. Oh, I'm having tremors today. Is exactly the same reason. I cleared the temple of the money changers, and I cursed this tree for the same thing. Now, I'm assuming that what we saw in this episode was an accurate connection. I have not gone back to the Bible and tried to see, did Jesus actually connect these two stories in the scriptures, or was just the creative license, or just the thoughts then of the people creating this show. And as we look at that, perhaps it is accurate. Perhaps it is not. Perhaps it is not. So, I'm trying to do two things at once here. I need to put an egg in here. Boy, this is a big egg. And what is the message from these two things? If in fact, the way it's depicted on the TV show The Chosen, if it indeed is correct, if it is indeed the way it was, did Jesus clear the temple of the money changers and curse the fig tree for the same reason? Well, let's try and deconstruct that just a little bit. So if we're looking at clearing the temple, why did Jesus clear the temple? Because people were disrespecting the house of God. They were disrespecting it by conducting business there, cheating people. But that wasn't the main issue. The main issue is they were pretending to do something good, providing a service for the people. So they had the appearance like they were doing something, but they were really enriching themselves. They were enriching themselves. So they were taking advantage. Same thing with the tree. I think this buttermilk is bad. Let's check. It doesn't smell bad. I know buttermilk lasts longer than what it said, so let's shake it up. What's the date on it? February. I think it's good. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's too good. Okay, so when we're looking at the fig tree, it had leaves. It had the appearance of being good, but the leaves were just for show. Bad tree. Bad tree. It tricked them into thinking it was a good tree because it had all the appearance that it needed. And can we think of anything in our world today where something has all the appearance of being what it's supposed to be, but has no depth? It isn't, in fact, what it claims to be. Well, our first thought is to attack our political system because there's no shortage of politicians pretending to be what they are not in order to gain votes or support. or use keywords or topics that will snag people in to supporting them even when they're saying and doing other things. And that's not right. So we can just focus on that. But I want to go in a little different direction with that. It's easy right now to attack our politics and our political systems. What about our churches? Do we have churches that have the leaves on it? They look like a church, they act like a church, they do all the things that a church should do, but there's no fruit. So why is there no fruit? Because there's no depth. They're putting all their efforts into having the appearance of doing that which they should be doing, and then they actually are not. And that becomes a problem. And then you get to the place where you have struggling churches and organizations. And we go into emergency mode. We're struggling. What are we going to do? Maybe a church or an organization is struggling because it's all for appearance sake. There's no depth. There is no fruit. And maybe, just like the fig tree, it's time for it to die. Now, that's pretty harsh, but maybe that is in fact what needs to happen. Perhaps that is what needs to happen. Let me make that a little browner. So when we're looking at this story of Jesus clearing the temple and Jesus cursing the fig tree, I've always read and understood that Jesus cursed the fig tree because it didn't have any fruit. But maybe that tree was meant to be cursed because it had leaves and had every appearance of making fruit, but did not. And so perhaps today when churches struggle, it's because they have every appearance of doing everything just right, but there's no depth. And perhaps some of these churches in our world, in our community, perhaps they need to die. Maybe they die and they're reborn, as they should have been. Or maybe they just die and go away. That's pretty some harsh sayings right now. Kind of hard thing to say that maybe a church should die. That's not really how we normally think. But perhaps it is time for some churches to die if they're all for show and there's no depth. In fact, this last week, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine that I've known for many, many years. In fact, I possibly could have known this friend much longer because we went to the same university together back in the 80s, but our paths didn't cross back then. And perhaps, and we do have a lot of similar history. Why is that sticking? And we do have some similar history. And we were talking about some history we have in common about a church that has no depth. And we both struggle with that because If there's no depth, then the fighting and the problems can't be resolved because there isn't the underlying depth for the problems to actually work together and with people. It's all about being right and getting my way, and that just doesn't work. So as we were having our conversation, one of the things we talked about, okay, why is that sticking? One of the things we talked about was that here's a situation where so-and-so's fighting with so-and-so. So-and-so's supposed to be the leader of the organization, but they don't even know that one of the staff members is married, and they don't even know who their spouse is. And it's like, I don't understand that. How could that be? How could you not know? And it's because, is this organization that, and this is from me and my friends' past, not too distant past, did not know that they were like the Leafs, all for appearance, without any depth. No bueno. That's not good. It is not good. So, that's this week's podcast. Do you have depth? Do the organizations that you belong to have depth? If you're working with churches and Christian organizations, do they have the depth that they need? Are they lacking in depth? Should some organizations that we're involved in just die? There's a nonprofit organization that I've been part of for about 13 years, and we're in the process of letting it close. We're using the funds that we have now to keep just one critical aspect of it open as long as we can, and we're being very, very tight with the money. In fact, the treasurer of the organization is sending me the financial report for 2025. And I'm meeting with the vice president on Wednesday, and we're actually looking at, okay, at what month of this year will we actually close up? And, you know, that's part of reality. It's like our organization did what it was supposed to do for a period of time. It's now time for it to pass on to some of the newer and younger organizations. It's kind of like when you look at church leadership or the health of the organization of the leadership. If you look at the leadership of your church, is your church board, are the leaders of your church all people in their 60s and 70s? There's no longevity there if it is. Are the leadership teams of your church all the same race, ethnicity, orientation? If you look at your group, do they have great big categories where they're all alike, where they're all the same? If there's no diversity in your leadership, that also is a problem. That's a problem for having these trees that are just all about the leaves without the actual fruit that is needed. Okay, well, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this unusual multitasking episode this week, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next week on the next one.